All right. I ain't gonna lie. Y'all just caught me in the middle of taking a bite of my sandwich, but it's okay. Like, it's morning for me. Let me turn my camera off and I'm still gonna talk. All right. So just bear with me. Oh my goodness. Look at this naked profile. There we go. Hi, guys. Welcome back. Mada Mondays. We are literally trying to help America think because for some reason, brain activity is just like ceased to exist among some people. What is happening? I'm gonna let some more people hop in. Give me 1 second. Listen, everybody, I'm super professional, but I'm hungry. It's morning here. You guys take on my mornings because I sit in front of the camera and I don't get to eat breakfast. So please bear with me. But I have a special guest that I'm going to be bringing on here with me to sit down and talk about a bunch of things. I like to let the guests introduce themselves so that the people can see who they're getting. I'm probably the realest person on the internet. There's nothing that I shy away from. So let's welcome our guest, Darius Mayfield, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Suni. And like I told you before, I love that name. Suni is such a dope name.
Thank you. I appreciate
it. Your parents did well.
So tell us, like, what's going on in New Jersey? What do you got going on there?
Yeah, man, I am Darius Mayfield. I am running for Congress in New Jersey's 12th congressional district, which encompasses Middlesex County, Somerset County, parts of Union County, as well as Mercer County. And I guess this is fitting for this program. I am what I like to call the most pro-Trump candidate running in the entire state of New Jersey right now. I was a big Trump fan. I am birthed from the MAGA movement, like so many great people are nowadays. And I can tell you, for all those people that are down on the process right now, that were, upset and down because Trump lost, don't be. There's a movement going on. There's a lot of energy in this country. There's a lot of energy specifically in this state here in New Jersey. And we are focused on flipping our governor's seat red this year, as well as taking to the midterms next year and flipping multiple seats. And I really believe New Jersey has the opportunity to set the trend going into next year's midterm elections by just showing the rest of the country just how energized and strong and serious we are about our politics. President Trump inspired a lot of people. For those that don't know me, in 2016, during President Trump's run, that was the first time I ever voted in my life. Never before in a state election, never before in a local election, in a federal election. That was the first time I ever voted. And basically the way it started is I was sitting on the couch with my fiance in 2015 when Donald Trump and Melania came down that escalator. And about 10, 15 minutes into his speech, I looked at my fiance, Saudi, and I said two things. I said, one, that's a real American. And two, that's going to be your next president. And that was in 2015. I just saw the writing on the wall and I heard what he was saying. And I knew his message would resonate with everyday, regular Americans. And we knew, or I knew specifically by how strong he's always been, that he was going to be a man of his word, something that we don't see from our politicians. I am a Black American. So obviously when Barack Obama ran the first time, I thought it was a great thing. I still to this day think it's a great thing that young Black and brown girls and boys got to see a man of color in there. But at the end of the day, it still wasn't enough for me to actually go to the polls and cast my vote, because just from listening, I just understood that it was going to, at the end of the day, be more of the same. A lot of weakness when it came to certain things. And unfortunately, he proved me right in this instance. And that's exactly what it was once he got in there. Just to go over a little bit of what I believe in. One, I'm a strong proponent of term limits. I think it's time to start breaking down these political cartels that are in our Senate, that are in our House of Representatives. And we need to start holding them accountable because they've just amassed way too much power. They've gotten way too comfortable in there, and it's time to get them out. And in fact, one of the biggest reasons I decided to run for Congress is because of how disparagingly our elected officials were so easily talking down to their constituents, whether they're in your party or not. as an elected official, you have an obligation and a duty to show everybody respect. And if there's something that one of your constituents doesn't agree with, you take the time and you talk to that constituent. Maybe you can change their mind, maybe you can't, but they deserve that respect. They deserve that honor, because those are the same people that put you in that position in the first place, whether they agreed with you or not. Their hate for you may have fueled you, their love for you may have fueled you, but either way, the constituents are what put you in that actual position. So just seeing how comfortable, people like the Nancy Pelosi's, the Maxine Waters, and a lot of people, and even some people on the right, were just so comfortable, whether it was calling us Neanderthals or, Hillary Clinton's famous line, deplorables. That's not becoming of a leader, man. That's really not becoming. And it just shows that they've been in there way too long, because they're so out of touch with reality and, how to treat the people that put them in the positions that they put them in and the people that they ultimately represent.
Facts. I think every American is right where you are when we're like, it's time for them to go. I don't know anybody who would want to spend their entire life influencing politics unless you just have a God complex. People have a
that
God
and your pockets
complex.
are getting fat.
There you go. Money is the root of all evil. Sometimes people use money for good, but these people aren't. And two things we were talking about, which is really important. One of them is extremely important to me, because I do advocate for the silenced voices in the Black community as well as America. But I'm a big Malcolm X fan. I think we need to. Our community it's dying. Like, let's just call a spade slowly. School choice is something that is needed there. And I don't understand for the life of me how our counterparts on the opposite side of the political spectrum can't realize how vital this is and how much it would change the community if they would have access to education. We wouldn't have this cycle repeated. Like, the literacy rate within the Black community, the last reported was 2016. 40% of graduating seniors couldn't even read at grade level.
Sad. It's disgusting.
Sad.
Honestly. Just look at my district in Trenton, New Jersey. The math proficiency rate is 3%. Not 300, 3%. That means 97% of the people in that school cannot do math at their grade level. They're not proficient in math. I mean, just that fact alone should get everybody in that school, everybody on that school board fired tomorrow. But this is some of the stuff we've been dealing with in our communities. And, just to dovetail off of what you said before, we know why these things are happening. It's a racket. It's all a racket. It's all corruption. When you're there, when you have, sitting members of Congress that come in broke and leave worth hundreds of millions of dollars, one has to just wonder, how did that happen? When you have somebody like Cory Booker that receives, while the mayor of Newark receives $100 million from Facebook, and we still don't know what happened to that money. We still see no progress, in the school system out there that should have took place. We understand what happened. And again, that's why I'm a huge proponent of school choice and also term limits. And to go off what you said, I mean, education in our community is the number one priority. And I'm not talking about education necessarily right now, because we've lost so many generations. Yes. That's the saddest part about this. We're just losing generation after generation after generation. The things that I am doing, the things that I am advocating for are for the babies and for people not even born yet, because we need to reach them and make sure they're able to come up in a system where these things can start to visibly change, not just change in speech and, change in, the marches that we do here and there. They need to actually change. We need tangible relief, tangible change in these situations. Even my opponent, Miss Bonnie Watson Coleman, she's an 80-year-old woman. And listen, there's nothing wrong with being of that age. But again, it's just a different generation. They have a different spirit and a different speed at which they run with. If there's anything Donald Trump showed us, is we can get things done, and we can get them done now. And people have to understand that. And that's the type of patriots you have standing up in this country right now. Because once we get there, once they let us in, it's over. We're not asking. We're not asking. We're coming in there telling and letting you know what's going to happen. And if it doesn't, we're going to expose it. We're going to expose it publicly, because this generation is different. We're a free generation. And that's what they're scared of right now. I don't advocate for people going inside the Capitol when they do, but I will say this. if our elected officials learned anything, they better learn that after seeing what you've seen on the 6th, people are not playing with you anymore. This is not a game. I was up there at the Capitol. Again, I did not go inside. I don't advocate for that. I don't advocate for violence, but I do advocate for expressing your First Amendment right. And we were up there expressing our First Amendment rights and letting our leaders know that we're here and we're here to stay and we will be heard. When it comes to school choice, that's probably one of my top issues. And I am a direct reflection of school choice and why it's so important. I grew up in the hoods of New Brunswick in the projects, single mother. My father left us when we were 3. It was just me, my mother, and my little sister. We used to have, crack dealers, crackheads outside. We used to hide under tables when they were shooting outside at night. And my mother sent me to the elementary school out there, Lord Sterling. And in 3rd grade, when me and my boy Jaja were walking to breakfast in the morning, some kid, I still don't, to this day, don't know who it was, picked up a knife in between 2 garbage cans and started chasing me and my friend Jaja. Just was in the 3rd grade. That day, when I did that, I ran all the way home. When I got home, obviously, I told my mother what happened, and she said, son, I'm sorry, and I will never send you back to that school. So what she did was, within the next week, she called up my aunt who lived in South Brunswick, which was an upper class, middle class neighborhood, which is actually in my district now. And we started using her address to send me to elementary school out there. Let me tell you, man, what a difference. I mean, and that's why you said this before. I have a saying, everybody knows me as Mr. Not Black, Not White American, right? Yep. And not only do I say that, but I lived it because I got to see the best of both worlds. Grew up and was born in the hood. My mom, fortunately got us out of there. And what happened when we started using my aunt's address about a year or so into the process, my mom got called down to the school and they basically told her, listen, we've been watching you guys for months now, and we know your son doesn't physically live in this school district. So you have 2 choices. You either take him out now, and we will allow him to go to any school in New Brunswick. We understand that he doesn't want to go back to Lord Sterling. We'll allow him to go to any school because back then, depending on where you live, determine what school you actually went to. But they said, we'll allow him to go to any school. Or if you choose to fight us, we will fine you and back fine you for everything you're going to be fined for illegally sending your son to our school district.
Wow.
So my mom said she started going in on them and she had to take me out for a little bit. She sent me up to Woodrow Wilson in New Brunswick. And it was more of the same. Obviously, I didn't get chased with a knife or anything like that, but you could just tell the difference in the drop off in quality of education, even when I went to Woodrow Wilson. So basically what my mom did was a few months later, she gathered all her stuff with the strength she had, and she moved us to the poorest part of that suburban neighborhood right next to the trailer park. So me and my sister could go back to school in South Brunswick and receive our education. Had she not done that, honestly, I probably wouldn't be here speaking to you today. And as people like to remind me a lot of times, I probably wouldn't be as articulate as I am right now.
I mean, your mom is the epitome of
superhero.
Yes, every Black woman who like I grew up in a single parent home. My mom, she honestly did the best that she knew how. I didn't go to crap schools. I was not around crap people. I didn't live in the middle class neighborhoods.
Yeah.
I lived not too far from those bad neighborhoods, but she always made sure I was straight. We need more moms like that. Yeah. Shout out to your mom. Like, happy Mother's Day to her again.
Happy Mother's Day, Mom. I love you. Absolutely.
Dedication. We need that.
Absolutely, man.
We need more representation.
And there's some strong women out there. Like you said, your mom was a single mom, and me and you are living examples. We know how strong those type of women are. And we just need to get back to a environment where we encourage them. We give them the resources they need. And in this case, it means something like school choice, because what that's going to force, listen, we have 3% proficiency rates in Trenton, New Jersey. That's atrocious. They should be fired and put out on the street. But what happens is if we open this up and we decide to, give everybody school choice, what's going to happen is you let the money follow the kid. So if that single mom, has an experience like mine or just knows that these schools are no good, she can take that money the state was paying the schools and transfer her kid to a parochial school, to a private school, to a charter school, or another school district altogether. And what that's going to do is 2 things. One, it's going to obviously get that kid the education they deserve. And 2, it's going to force those failing public schools to either clean up their act or go out of business. That is the time we're on right now, man. There are no more games. We don't want to lose any more generations. If my opponent and other Democrats in the House and things like that are okay with us going another 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years, us losing generation after generation, shame on them, man. We're not with that anymore. We will not allow that to happen. And we are going to push for things like school choice. If I need to start with the New Jersey legislator to do it here and set an example for the rest of the country, we will do that. But we are serious when we talk about these things, and we are serious about giving people in our world, especially the Black and brown community that, are going through a lot of these disastrous things, the opportunity and the chances they actually want that will help them ascend to better lives and begin to fix their neighborhoods and just fix the whole feel of our neighborhoods and generations to come. So we're not playing with these guys, man. The time for games is over. And anybody that tells you otherwise, we need to start looking at them sideways and really calling them out for the corrupt thieves they are.
Thank you. I just spent the whole show talking about academia because they're now going after Braden Ellis. Pretty sure you heard of him.
I have heard the name.
We just had him on a couple of days ago. He came on. We talked to him about it. Today, there is now a hit piece out on him and his family from a teacher at the university. Like, this is what happens when you let teachers unions speak up instead of the parents and the children which they serve.
Yep.
In my opinion, yes, teachers they get paid, they go to school for it, but you're also a public servant in some ways. You really are. Yep. They're going after this young man. They labeled him a white supremacist for doing
they label
this.
Everybody that. Oh, here. What? Hey, make America great again. These people are pansies, man. It's hilarious.
Crazy.
It would be even more funny if it wasn't so sad, to be honest with you.
It would. I did a video. I'm like kicked off of all my social media right now, so I don't have access to all the people that I normally do. But I asked people, when is enough? Why are we so weak as a community to where Joe Biden can tell us you're not Black if you don't vote Democrat? You don't know how to use the internet. You don't know how to go find an ID, the DMV. You can't do any of these things. We're not diverse in thought when clearly we defy that entire narrative because Black folks are very diverse. We're not all the same.
And they, and they run around calling them pop-pop. I had to put up a post about that yesterday. I see Black people out here calling Joe Biden pop-pop. Like, what? What? I really had to put a post up about that yesterday. But you know what? And I said in the post, I said, I think there's deeper issues there. And yes. I meant it. That's really what it is. And we've been such a beaten down community for so long. So to a large degree, I understand it. And that's why I feel like I'm the perfect person to kind of step up and fill this void. Because again, I've lived in both worlds. This is not a Black man that was born to privilege, trying to come out and tell the rest of people what to do. No, I was born in the hood. I went through my problems. I had my run-ins with the police. Everybody knows my story. I had quite a rough childhood growing up, and whether that was because my father wasn't there or whatever the case is. But luckily, within belief in myself, having a strong family outside of my immediate family, having a strong belief and trust in God, growing up in the church, and eventually being able to culminate all those things within myself to become more of a thinker and a grower rather than a follower at the end of the day. And what a lot of these kids in these communities need is to be taught those things. And that's why it comes with education. If these kids, all they're seeing is death, drugs, violence, that's what the majority of them are going to learn. That's what the majority of them are going to follow. If they get taught financial literacy classes, if they get taught the importance of the family structure, education, they will become better men and women for the future of just humanity as a whole, to be honest with you. But right now, that's not what they're being taught. Right now, they're being basically led to believe that the way they're going, the things that happen in their hood is the cool thing to do. It's just the way it's supposed to be because we're Black and that's how Black people act. That's what we do. You're Black. And it's gotten so bad to, when people like myself sometimes talk so articulately, they got the nerve to tell us, you ain't Black. You don't sound white. Black. I mean, what? Like, yo, they got you so twisted up that they got you calling me white because I talk right. Come on, man. Come on, man. Like Joe
You know what
Biden,
it
I hate when
is?
he says that, but I love it.
Do you know what it is? It's literally Stockholm syndrome. Like it's
Yeah,
Stockholm syndrome. That's what it
yeah.
is. It's
And
years.
PTSD.
Exactly. His name is Darren. His name is fleeing me, but I love him because he brought that to my attention. He said, "You know, the Black community is suffering from PTSD. If you look at the kids in the hood,
Mm-hmm.
they're suffering from
Mm-hmm.
everything you just said. They see death. They see probably one of their parents or family members on some type of drug. I still to this day have heroin addicts in my family. Like
Yeah.
this stuff is normal. Pain is normal to us. We laugh at it. I remember laughing at beatdowns I got.
Yeah.
Dang, I got
Yeah.
jacked up, and we sit there and we
Me
laugh
too.
at it.
Me too.
It's sad.
Yeah. It brings me back to, another example of that is when President Trump was running and that infamous tape came out, the illegally taped conversation where he said,
Yeah.
I grab him by the, whatever the
Mhm.
case is. For me to see rappers coming out and saying something when I just listened to your song yesterday and you literally was talking about date raping a girl. Like, what are we talking about? What are we talking about? So it's just that hypocrisy. And Tupac said it. He said, this is probably the most hypocritical genre, in the world. There's a lot of hypocrisy, in our music, in our lifestyles and what we do. I'll even give you another example when it comes to what we're seeing with BLM and organizations like that marching over police shootings and things like that. Well, in 2019, about 240 Black people were shot and killed by police in this country.
Yes.
Now, of that 240, 70, somewhere between 75 and 85% of those were what we call justified killings, meaning they ran up in a crack house, they were being shot at, whatever the case is. It was only about 4 or 5 of those that were, unarmed kids. And listen, one is too many. So I understand that and I have empathy for the cause. But now let's take that 240 and the entire country over the course of an entire year. And just in the last 3 weeks, you've had that many people about shot in one city in one state in this
Yes.
country, which is the city of Chicago. So
Yes.
even though there's there's a disparity, because that same year 240 Black people were shot and killed, there was about 600 white people. We don't talk about that. Now, I do
Yes.
know there's a disparity because obviously there's a lot more white people in this country than there
Mhm.
is Black people. So, those disparities are a little bit off. Absolutely. And I have empathy for that. I have understanding for that. But we need to have understanding for the other side as well and have understanding for the facts of what we're dealing with. Because right now we're marching over situations that statistically don't really make sense, but yet those same marches are going into the same neighborhoods we're supposed to be fighting for and destroying those neighborhoods at the same time. There's just a lot of backwards stuff, a lot of misdirected anger. And that's why I always say, when it comes to the people of movements like Black Lives Matter, when it comes to the people and the conservative movement and those things, I'm for all of those people. It's more so the people at the top of these movements that are pulling the strings, the king makers and the queen makers, the George Soroses and whoever else is funding these actual groups that is propagating these people. Because at the end of the day, the people, the American people, whether you're Black or white, Democratic or Republican, we want the same things. We might have different ways of achieving that and different ways of getting there, but we all want the same thing, which is life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and we want a better future for our kids. So I think I'm the perfect person to just kind of cross parties, cross racial lines, not get into this whole race baiting, and really be in it to uplift all Americans.
Absolutely. And this is why I have you guys on this show, because I do think we need to showcase candidates that actually have plans for their states, their cities, and then eventually America. That is literally
Mm,
what Malcolm X embodied when he got up and
mm,
talked during the Ballot of the Bullet. He kept asking folks, Black folks, why are you the political chumps? You
yep.
have the opportunities and the ability to take over your own communities. And then that translates to Washington. We're more than capable of doing it. I had somebody tell me, you are mentally enslaved. And I said, well, dang, let me think. What? I believe in myself. I don't use my skin color as a crutch. I wanted to start a podcast and it turned into this.
Yeah.
It turned into
Congratulations, by the
me.
way.
Thank you. It turned into me sitting with senators, representatives that you guys see on TV. I get to sit and talk to
Yep.
these people. So where am I
Yep.
enslaved?
You know,
That's
you
sad.
you you hit it on the head. And sadly, not that we can't obtain power politically, but as you see this going with Democrats trying to make illegal immigrants,
Oh yeah.
citizens now and things like that, that's just burying our cause and taking more and more power away from us right now. I think a
Yep.
lot of people don't really understand the makeup of this country. There's 350 million, let's say, Americans in this country, right? 200 million plus of those are Caucasian. About 50 to 60 million of those are Hispanic, and 40 to 50 million of those are Black Americans. That's a very
Mhm.
large number. When you get down to, let's say, Muslims, there's only a few million of them. Let's say Asians, only a few million of them. They don't have numbers like we do. But because
Yep.
people are so propagated so much, you ask the average person, they don't even know that. They don't even understand that. They don't even understand the power that we have behind us. And even when you break down, like, let's say the Hispanic numbers, yes, there's 50 to 60 million of them, but that encompasses like all Hispanics, whether you're Cuban,
Yes.
Mexican, Puerto Rican, this, that. When we're talking about Black people, I'm talking about just straight descendants of slaves. Right, I'm a descendant. Both of my great grandfathers were 100% Native American. I come from the two largest Native American tribes in this country, and they married freed slaves. So I'm a direct descendant of Native Americans and slaves in this country. We have 40 to 50 million of us in this country. And another thing people don't realize is over 50% of Black Americans do live in middle class neighborhoods. This
Yes,
isn't
they
like
do.
we're all just poor and we all live in the hood. They live, 52% of us live in middle class neighborhoods. We have a large, very affluent representation. We just don't have the togetherness that it takes. And one of the things that we need to start beating back, especially when it comes to Democrats, one of the reasons why I believe personally that they let a lot of this violence thrive in our communities is to basically overrun our neighborhoods with violence. And what ends up happening? They end up coming in, taking over our communities, right?
Yep.
They take over. You go to Harlem right now, it's nothing but Brooklynites, coming, moving in there, kind of taking over their neighborhood. Well, if a Democrat was really serious about uplifting our people, because the number one thing is education. Number two is our economic empowerment. We need to be
Yep.
economically empowered, right? So instead of coming in and beautifying our neighborhood by moving us out and displacing all of us, why don't you invest back in these neighborhoods and give the people that have been living there for generations a chance to obtain that generational wealth? Why don't we beautify their neighborhoods? Why don't we beautify their house? Let them own their houses in these neighborhoods. And actually, that would be one of the quickest ways to start evening out the playing field when it comes to economic disparities amongst the different classes within this country. So until Democrats start talking about things like that and taking issues like that seriously, we really can't take them seriously anymore, because the type of person that would advocate for something like that, a President Trump, this guy that they're walking around saying is racist,
Yep.
this, racist, that. He's all about that in the economic empowerment. He's all about, especially the Black community, when he presented that platinum plan. Ice Cube talked to him. We were talking about that the other day. Right off the bat, this guy promised $500 billion, economic development, opening up our resources and opening up our ability to secure loans from banks the
Yep.
way we need to for our entrepreneurial endeavors, our education, whatever the case is. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, who ain't Black either, but that's a whole nother story. They told him, yeah, we'll talk after the election. Well, they still haven't had that
Still
conversation.
haven't
Where
talked.
are you? Where are you? But this is how we get tricked and played every time. And just it's like we like this abuse, man. And it comes back to what you were saying before, with us just having PTSD and just
Yeah.
being comfortable and things like this and being afraid of the unknown. Well, listen, I'm gonna tell you the same thing Donald Trump told you. Vote for me. What do you have to lose?
Thank you. You brought up this is what made me fall in love with this man. I have been his biggest champion and advocate after I heard him speak when he went to Michigan after Obama went there pretending like he was drinking the damn water. When
Mm-hmm.
he went there and he asked him, "What do you have to lose?" I'm going to play this because this spoke to so many Black people. So many Black people that don't feel like they have a voice, that feel like the government doesn't care. And I can understand why they're there, because these
Mm-hmm.
Democrats, and we have to blame it on Democratic policies because it's the truth. It's been since FD. We can go back to the New Deal. Democratic progressive policies have completely destroyed the Black community.
Yep.
Group in America has been more harmed by Hillary Clinton's policies than African Americans. No group. If Hillary Clinton's goal was to inflict pain on the African American community, she could not have done a better job. It's a disgrace. Tonight, I'm asking for the vote of every single African American citizen in this country who wants to see a better future. Look how much African American communities have suffered under Democratic control. To those I say the following: what do you have to lose by trying something new like Trump?
What do we have to lose?
You know what they're going to say to you?
57 years.
You know, I can hear it now. You know what the knock on that video is? And this is how sad we are. They're going to be like, look how he said African. He says it too strong. He means something by that. Did you hear him? He said African. Yo, because I know you be hearing that all the time. You used to hear that. Bro.
We will find any and everything.
It's crazy. But, when you just look at the history, some of the people that I'm a little disappointed in is, and even though, I've met him and I have respect for him, somebody like a Jesse Jackson, right? This is a guy that Trump gave him his first presidential office for free. This is also a guy that gave him an award for helping young Black youth to integrate into Wall Street and develop different programs. But lastly, and one of the most important stories he ever told was when he said he had a couple of Black youth that were entrepreneurs. They went to several banks. All the banks shot him down. So he said, you know what? I'm going to set you up with a meeting with Trump. Go talk to him. They went to Donald Trump. They went to his office, talked to him. And after the conversation, Trump said, okay, I'm going to give you the loan. Go do what you got to do. And then, come back to see me, whatever the timeline is to pay it back. They said every single person that went there came back to him after he gave him the loan, gave him the money willingly, came back. And he said, how are you doing? He said, things are going great. They told him how good things were going. He said, okay, that's it. They're like, what do you mean? Here's your money. No, you don't have to pay me back. I'm glad you're doing well. I'm glad you went out there and did what you did. And that's for you. Like, just to have a heart like that. There's so many examples of this. Like when they broke down on the side of the road with Melania in the limousine, and somebody came and gave them a ride, and this guy paid off their entire mortgage the next day. Like, who does stuff like this? There's so many examples of that out there. But obviously, especially over the last 4 years, the media would never tell the story that way. They'd never let you see it. It was just the new age way of just propagating people and keeping them basically stuck in the sunken place, while people like yourself and I really just took life by the horns and just said, you know what? At the end of the day, you only get one life. This is the greatest country ever. I understand we grew up in certain conditions, but look at all this opportunity in front of us. Let's go get it. And that's exactly what we did.
Facts, man. Look, we went over our time because we were sitting here talking, and we already talked about policing in America. Because listen, back the blue. Do you hear me? PTP is always going to stand behind our police officers. There are bad apples in a bunch. There's bad apples in a bunch everywhere. We're not trying to defund. I wish we would defund politics for a little bit. I don't see that. I don't see us trying to really defund the media. And there's more than enough bad apples. The media, thank you, Rose. They are responsible for a lot of the stuff that we are even having to combat.
I know people thought it was a strong saying, but I absolutely agree with Donald Trump when he says the media is the enemy of the people. Because when you propagate an entire population that much, you're nothing but the enemy of the people. And one of the worst things I see on TV that I've seen, especially, it's been prevalent over the last 4 or 5 years, is every time you turn on a CNN, every time you turn on an MSNBC, they're always telling especially young Black and brown girls and boys reasons why they can't do something. The boogeyman's going to come and get you. The KKK is out to get you, and they're going to stop you before you ever get started. They're purposely doing these things to keep the conscience of these kids beat down and keep them under their thumb. That's why you see now, for the first time, a majority of Democrats believe that socialism is better than capitalism.
Yep.
An even higher majority of teens and preteens believe that same thing. When it comes to what you were talking about as far as police reform is definitely a part of my platform. I was a big proponent of the First Step Act. I would like to see us get the Second Step Act passed as well. And these are one of the things that, especially when it comes to our community, when you had people like Jay-Z, the Nas's, all people I listened to and respect to some degree, but back in the day, they would all talk about the Rockefeller drug laws, where crack and coke were, distinguished as two different entities, and you got different penalties depending on which drug you were caught with. And you could have a gram of coke and get probation. You could have a gram of crack and get 10 years in jail because black people did crack, white people did coke. Well, Donald Trump's First Step Act reversed that. They are now classified as the same thing, with the same minimums, with the same maximums. And these are significant things. These are things that, people, the so-called leaders in the black community, tried to get done for a long time. And it took this racist orange man to come in here and just say, this is what's going to happen. And he got it done. So when people ask me why I talk about a Donald Trump or why I respect it, because I understand the facts. I understand what we just saw in front of our eyes. I'm not looking at what other people. I love what Hassan Campbell says. What are you looking at with your lying eyes? They're looking through their lying eyes right now, and their lying eyes are telling them stuff that they don't even know about. I talk to people and I ask them about certain things. Half of them don't even know that that's what took place in the First Step Act. They don't know what opportunity zones are. They don't know that this guy let out 95% of the people that were let out, through this act were those of color. They don't know any of these things. So when you don't know these things, it doesn't mean that you're any less than me or dumb, but it just means that you don't know. And you should probably acknowledge that sometimes and maybe try to have real, authentic, intelligent conversations rather than just continuing to go off your emotions and what CNN tells you at the end of the day.
Facts, man. You summed it up for us. We got to do better. We have to. I'm going to continue to make America think again. And every guest that I've had on, I invite them onto my platform because I'm controversial, and I don't even mean to do it because I simply tell the truth. People are like, "Yo, did you just get on there and say that?" And I'm like, "Why not?" Like Caitlyn Jenner is not a woman. He's a man.
I mean, that's not controversial, but
it's not, but it is in this day and age. You can't women don't even know what makes them women anymore.
Well, we can't even call them mom or dad anymore either. I heard the Democratic congresswoman the other day. She said, birth people. It's not pregnant women anymore. It's birth people. What is that? And I was talking to some Democrats a couple of days ago, and I told them that. They were like, are you serious? Like, these things that are happening, Democrats don't even agree with. In this case, a lot of them just hated Trump so much for whatever reason. But that's why I see a real opening. I really, really do. There's a lot of energy right now. I am here for Republicans. I am here for independents. I am here for Democrats. I want you all to vote for me with knowing in your heart that I am here to do good for the people. Forget the parties at the end of the day. I'm not for party. I'm for people. And I'm for uplifting all people. There's not just poor black or brown people. There's poor white people too. In fact, there's a lot more poor white people in this country than there are black and brown, just from sheer numbers. I'm for all people. We want the same things at the end of the day, man. So give me a chance, and just remember, a vote for Darius is a vote for America and common sense.
Thank you for coming on, man. And we'll get in touch to bring you on Hot Mike so we can have more in-depth discussion about your plans for New Jersey, because I want to hear more. So thank you everybody for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit the thumbs up. If you're watching on Facebook, make sure you hit that share button and get this video out to everybody. We're fighting against shadow ban, but it's okay because you guys make the internet work. I don't think Americans realize how powerful they are. The power of the word of mouth is really what got us to where we are. So share this video, like, subscribe if you're new here, and thank you again for coming on and sitting and talking with me, Darius.
Thank you for having me, Shoni. And just remember, there's a lot more of us than there is them. And by them, I mean politicians. So for every one politician, there's millions of us. We can do this, and we can take our country back.
Facts. You guys have a good night.